Hey, what's up YouTube? I'm Chris, and today I'm going to show you how to properly update the firmware on your original Fujifilm X100. Now, before we get started, you should check your current firmware version, because if you have the latest firmware version, then there's no need to update it. If you've already checked your firmware version and know that you definitely need to update your X100, then you can skip ahead to this time in the video. To check your current firmware version, you'll need to grab yourself a battery, obviously, and an SD card, which may not be so obvious. If you don't grab an SD card, then you'll get this screen, which tells you absolutely nothing about your firmware version. With your battery and SD card inserted, you'll want to first hold down the display/back button while you turn the camera on. Keep holding down the display/back button until you see this screen. Here, you'll get a readout of your current firmware version. Once you know the version, you can turn your X100 off. Now, the latest firmware version from Fujifilm is 2.11. So if your version is anything below that, then you should consider updating the firmware. You'll need two things in order to update your Fujifilm X100's firmware. The first thing is a fully charged battery. Do not skip this step. If you do, then you run the risk of bricking your X100. You don't want your battery running out of juice before this firmware update finishes installing. So be smart and fully charge your battery first. The second thing you'll need is an SD card. You'll need to format that SD card. This step will erase everything on your SD card, so be sure to save anything important on it beforehand. To format the SD card, you'll first insert it into your X100 and then turn your camera on. Hit menu, then left on the D-pad, then down on the D-pad to set. Hit right on the D-pad to enter that submenu and scroll down until you get to format. Then hit the D-pad up to OK. Once that's complete, you can turn your X100 off. Quick note, your menu options might look slightly different from what you see here due to different firmware versions. Just keep hunting around under that set submenu until you find format. Remove that newly formatted SD card from your X100 and insert it into your PC or Mac. Here we'll be using a Mac. Head on over to the link I provide in the description to this video and scroll down to I agree. Check that box and then click download. Now take your newly downloaded firmware file and copy that onto your X100's SD card. Once copied, you can eject the card from your Mac or PC and insert it into your X100. With a fully charged battery installed and an SD card with the latest 2.11 firmware installed, you can turn on your X100. But before you flip the camera's power switch to on, you'll want to hold down the display/back button while doing so. Once you see this screen, you can let go of that display/back button. Press OK. Press OK again, and then OK one last time. Now be super careful not to touch any buttons on the X100 while the firmware is updating. Doing so could brick it. I suggest you gently put down your X100 while the firmware is updating. Don't touch anything until the firmware is done doing its thing. This process takes about 90 seconds. Once complete, you can turn your camera off. Check to make sure the firmware update was successful by holding down that display/back button while turning the camera on. If you see version 2.11, then you have successfully updated your X100's firmware. Cheers to that. You can turn your camera off. Final step is to turn your X100 on and reformat your SD card one last time. And that's it. I hope this video helped you out. Feel free to like this video if it did. I have more X100 videos in the pipeline, so be sure to subscribe for more of those. And enjoy your newly updated X100. This 2.11 firmware really does make improvements to startup time, along with major performance improvements to autofocus. These are such great cameras. They're a really good bang for your buck and perfect for social media when combined with a powerful editing tool like Lightroom for fully customizing raw images. Thanks for watching, and you will catch me in the next one. See ya.